Good evening, everyone. I'm here to talk about the Dresden Files by Jim Butcher. I am about 7 books into the series as it stands. I believe there are approximately 13 installments so far, or at least there will be 13 soon, maybe coming up in the early part of 2012. So being about 7 books into the series seemed like a good time to sit down and talk about my thoughts on the matter. And besides, 7 is a magical number, right? So Harry Dresden would approve. Or not. I don't know. Anyway. So, Harry Dresden. Dresden Files. They are a huge phenomenon in the urban fantasy genre. And if you are interested in urban fantasy, it's definitely something that you should at least try to read. In fact, this feeling of having to try everything that's important in the urban fantasy genre was what drove me to try these novels in the first place. That and the insistence of several good friends who kept telling me, no, the series is great, you really got to read it. So I had seen bits and pieces of the Sci-Fi Channel's television show way back in the day with Mr. Blackstone, is that the actor's name? Anyway, fabulous guy. He fits my image of Harry Dresden to a T, which I think some book purists may disagree with, but oh well. Anyway, so I'd seen bits and pieces, seen commercials for the series, and it kind of intrigued me, even if it didn't get me really excited. So when my friends really insisted these books were great, I thought, okay, well, I'm going to, give the first one a try. Because the series is really long, and I don't want to just commit to reading the whole thing without sampling the first volume. Right, so, Stormfront. Yes, Stormfront, first novel. I sat down, I read it in a day or two, and it failed utterly for me. I couldn't stand it. Harry Dresden was a complete chauvinist. He pissed me off. I didn't like the way that the book treated its female characters, and I just left it feeling the need to rant to the internet and to not touch another Harry Dresden novel for a really long time. Which, dismayed my poor friends, but they kept telling me that no, it gets better, and I kept Harry Dresden at arm's length for many years after that, but finally, about 4 or 5 months ago, I decided, okay, it's time to finally sit down again, give this the good old 3-book try, and see if it gets better. I mean, my friends love it. Something has got to change here. He can't be a chauvinistic asshole the whole time. There's got to be some good stories here, so I'm going to give it a go, or a second go. And when I set out to do this interview, or rather review, I couldn't even find my copy of Stormfront. So that lets you know how much I really was not impressed by the opening gambit of this series. Well, I got Full Moon a few months ago, and then I quickly run through every subsequent book I could get my hands on. And in fact, I've got Proven Guilty, the 8th book, I think, over here on the couch behind me, just waiting for me to begin it. I can't wait. Because this series has, without a doubt, completely improved. Harry's chauvinism gets remarkably better because he gets called on it. He develops as a human being. He's not an ignorant ass the entire time. In fact, his chauvinism is a liability. And he knows it's a liability, and it gets him in trouble more than a few times. Jim Butcher, I really appreciate it. Thank you for making a character's flaw such an indispensable part of him, but also a part that it's a weakness. It's a true weakness. It really gets him in trouble. I appreciate that. While chauvinism is one of my main complaints of the early Harry Dresden, conversely, I think the series improves when it kind of shoves off one of its main female characters, that being Susan. Because in the early books, the character of Susan is endlessly portrayed with all of this animal language. She's just very animalistic in the way that she moves and the way that she exists, and I didn't appreciate that. That just seemed to kind of lower her to a level below Harry Dresden. But since we're reading the perspective from Harry Dresden's point of view, chauvinism, But also at the same time, that animal language started working for her after her unfortunate transformation or half transformation to vampire, which, by the way, this review is going to have spoilers, but if you're watching a review about the first 7 books of a series, I expect you to have expected that. So, Susan, less of her in later books. I appreciate that. Murphy, more of her in later books. Murphy is, of course, Harry's kind of best friend and contact on the police force. She brings him in to help her with multiple cases and saves his bacon more than once. And Murphy is completely kick-ass. She is a well-rounded character, female, total badass. Yes, this is often portrayed as her trying to outman the man in the man-dominated field that she works in, but it's okay. She's so badass that I will let that go. And I'm eager to see whatever relationship is developing between her and Harry on a romantic side. Maybe this will lessen Harry's chauvinism even more. That would be keen. Another thing about this series is that as I went through these first, let's say, Full Moon, Grave Peril, up through Summer Night, I was really taken aback by how much shit Harry Dresden is put through. Serious, crazy, drive yourself to dropping dead of exhaustion and stress shit. And before I got to the end of Grave Peril, I was like, okay, if Jim Butcher does not put in here how Harry is affected by all this crap that he is going through, if there are not serious long-term ramifications to his experiences, I'm just going to have to throw this book across the room and I'm not going to be able to take it seriously. It's crazy. There needs to be some serious psychological fallout from the stuff that Harry Dresden has been through. And there is. I am so delighted because Harry actually deals with depression. He deals with post-traumatic stress disorder. He deals with some serious fallout to these serious issues, and that is a great strength to these novels, seeing this realistic side of a protagonist dealing with all these things. I really, really like that. I also like that as the series progresses, at the beginning, Harry's kind of doing this lone wolf thing. He doesn't really have a lot of friends or contacts. They constantly talk about how the threshold on his home is really weak because his home's not really a home, it's just a bachelor pad. There's not a lot of love and warmth there to build up a really strong threshold. But as the series progresses, he discovers more family that he didn't know he had. He forges these connections that are stronger than he thinks or dares hope. And he really starts to form this network that more than a network is a family. And I like how we're going from lone wolf to really interconnected family man as the series progresses, because it ups the stakes. I mean, besides everything getting crazier with volume after volume, where we go from dealing with like a rogue werewolf to dealing with the monarchs of the fairy court to dealing with a whole bunch of necromancers trying to make themselves a god, more than the stakes just raising that way, the stakes are raising in what Harry can lose. He has... Oh, hello, Kaylee. We're having a guest appearance by Kaylee and Tiger Jack here. Let's move it along. But the stakes are raising in what he can lose personally. He has people he cares about. He has family members now that he could lose as the series goes on. And I'm eager to see where that goes, even though it could go in a really depressing place if any of these characters die later in the series. Please don't do that. Please, Jim Butcher. Okay. I don't know what else to say at this point. I'm really delighted. I'm excited. I'm happy. Kudos. I'm going to move on to Proven Guilty as soon as I can. Good night.